Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Dre. I work at the Creative Shop. I'm the vertical lead for travel for Facebook and Instagram. And I'm here today to talk to you about branded content and the best practices for travel, for the travel industry. So this narrative is really just going to kick off with some of the best practices we've learned over several years of testing and learning on our platform and identifying what works well. There's definitely freedom to push beyond these best practices and experiment. But I think if you're grounded in these basic 4 things you need to remember as you're creating content for brands as an influencer, it'll be a great start as you continue to build and grow the work that you're doing. So I'll start really simply with this statement: mobile best practices matter. I think we've learned a lot through working with brands, specifically on the content that they put across the platform, whether it's to drive to an objective around sales or booking or whatever the objective is. There's a lot of things we've learned. And what we want to start with this. People thumb through about 300 feet of content every day. And wow, that's crazy, right? On the left, you can see we have the Statue of Liberty. That's a direct comparison to what 300 feet is. It's a lot of content. So we know people are flying through feed really fast. And there's a big responsibility on you all to stop people, to connect with people, to communicate what you want them to hear in partnership with the brand. So again, setting context, like it's a lot of content people are taking in every day. How do we stand out in that space? And really create for how people consume. We talk about the speed of feed that happens, that people, are constantly swiping through a lot, even in stories on Instagram. People are going through fast. How do we stop them and really land the message you're trying to land? So we really focus on creating for how people consume in 4 different ways. The first one is capturing attention and highlighting your brand. So again, you have the responsibility in this instance. You have your brand, which is your brand as an influencer and the kind of content you create, and then you have the brand that you're working for, that you're trying to bring into this organic space. So in a way, you're sort of capturing attention with both, but there's a few examples that we'll share later that talk about maybe how to do that and really connect, because context is really important. Communicating information and again, within sort of that image or video, whatever you're trying to do, getting that in early and upfront early. Design for sound off. Now, this has been something that historically for a long time we've said around 80% of people in feed have their sound off. It's evolved over time because with stories becoming really popular, we see actually 60% of people have their sound on. So I think it's just making sure whatever you're telling, whatever story you're giving, you delight with sound on, but you don't make it so that people have to turn on their sound to really understand what you're communicating. Framing for mobile is the third one. I think this goes without saying. It's like the mobile space is a very different space from desktop. So how can you, if you do tend to normally present in landscape or take pictures in landscape or do wider stuff that's not mobile first, how can you center protect to sort of make sure your image or video or whatever it is can work within and be flexible enough to work within different spaces. But again, just thinking how we look at a phone these days, it's very vertical. And so how do we make sure we're thinking about that vertical space and playing with that vertical space in really interesting ways and framing it in different ways? And then the final thing is keep it short. I think this goes without saying, again, back to what I was saying around the 300 feet of content every day. Eyes are scanning through a lot of different things. You need to stop them. Something that grabs people's attention in a quick amount of time is key. So what we've seen on the platform is things that deliver a key message or something's thumb stopping or something that grabs your attention within the first 3 to 5 seconds is really important. And what we've seen is if you can capture that attention in that short amount of time, that it doesn't mean that people will only watch sort of that short snackable content. If you have something longer form, bring them in and they'll tend to watch longer. So kind of hook them at the beginning, and then can you keep them there for longer? Again, doesn't mean that long form doesn't play, but if you have the opportunity to test and learn and try some shorter things that connect quickly, or doing something longer that brings people in the first few seconds, it's key. So those are the 4 things around how people consume. And then here's just around like some data points that you can use around mobile best practices for showing the brand early. We've seen an increase about 90% for relevance, 44% increase in brand interest and purchase intent. If you incorporate your brand by showing the product or focusing the story on the brand, bringing the brand in there early, usually has a positive benefit. And then, like I said earlier, designing for sound off, making whatever you're saying really clear without sound is really important. Again, we've seen, higher relevance, brand interest, and purchase intent when you've delighted with sound on, but not made it so like you can't really understand what the key message or what the key takeaway is without sound. This is, I think, a really important slide. I love this slide because I think the perception here is that with a lot of the way people view content, a lot of people think that that you see the ad and people read the post copy, but the reality is the first thing people look at is the image. So whether it's a 4x5 or a 9:16, the first place your eye goes is there. Then the second place we see people go is post copy. But again, remember, people are flying through feed pretty fast. We aren't always guaranteed they're going to get to the post copy and or read the post copy. So I think it's really important to think about how can you build messages, copy using different apps, different things to bring, maybe it's video, maybe it's static with like a message overlaid, but some kind of message within your content to really connect with what you're trying to communicate. If you don't need to connect and it's more of a visual story and it communicates, that's fine. But I think it's good to remember that this is kind of, the visual hierarchy for where people's eye goes. And we find that oftentimes people don't even make it to the post copy. So considering that. That said, post copy I think is really important too, from a writing the post copy right, getting that right, because it is sort of second. And then third is the brand. So you can see even the fact that I hit the image first and then I hit the post copy second. The third thing is I might be then connecting to the brand in the profile image. So don't rely fully on that profile circle in the corner to really connect with people and help them understand the brand. Like maybe there's other ways to bring the brand in there. So general branded content, creative tips. Good content makes good branded content. So, I mean, again, this kind of is a no duh, but like good creative, really thoughtful creative following these best practices. We've seen, positive brand sentiment around, likable creative. And this one from Thrillist is an example where we partnered with Thrillist to bring in creators for this really cool game show called Roll the Dice. And again, it was really clear what the thing was. They brought you into this sort of really lively video, but like set up the longer form content with the short form video. So it's really, focusing on making great content and think of the possibilities beyond followers, more about good content and what will resonate with your target. So just a few examples of how we could maybe highlight brand identity. Again, your brand is first. You're the brand that and you're the creator and the influencer. So you really need to stay within sort of your brand tone and feel. But here's a few examples of just in the one on the left for Sephora, it's like elements of the brand, whether it's the bag or the picture of the place in the back. Butterfinger is just straight up like it's the desserts, but it's the product in there, integrating the product in a simple way. And then the one on the left is more again, not following all the best practices on Sound On, but using the Smile Direct shirt to really get it, the brand, and connect there. And then actually adding some visual context around type and animation and those kind of things. Keep it simple, let the brand speak for itself. Again, I think this goes without saying, but like, how can you bring the brand in a very natural way? Here's some examples. I love just on the left where the product is in there, but again, very much about the influencer, very much about what they stand for. In the middle one, you've got a paid partnership with Abercrombie, but so it's more of a look and feel. And then in the other one, again, it's more a fashion one, but they're really kind of doing their thing. But then the brand is involved. The last thing I would say is highlight the creator's voice, story, and style. So again, this is your voice, your story, your style needs to be there. But again, how can you bring the product in an interesting way? And here's just like three examples.
I'm a drag queen. Check it out. I'm Pablo Vittar. I'm fabulous.
So I love the Pablo Vittar example because, again, as we were talking about, like, it definitely is the tone of voice of the influencer, but uses type, you can still understand what's the concept, what the thing is, what they're trying to communicate with sound off as well.